I lost a huge deal in my first year selling insurance, and it wasn't because I didn't know the numbers. I had built a relationship over multiple weeks. I knew exactly what this particular prospect needed, and I knew that she was ready to go. But the moment where you ask for the check, like what card do you want to put that on? How can you pay? I said something else instead. I asked if she had any other questions, and she said no. And I let that silence sit there instead of saying the one sentence I had rehearsed over in my mind the whole entire time before. She didn't sign that day. She didn't sign the next week. Somebody else closed her eventually. Somebody probably knew less about her situation than I did. And I've watched that exact freeze happen to almost every person I've consulted since in business. And it has nothing to do with insurance. So let's talk about exactly what's happening in that second and what you need to do instead. So you're not wasting money like I did in the past. Quick context on why I'm the one telling you this. I have an MBA, but this isn't classroom knowledge. I spent close to a decade in corporate sales leadership, first at State Farm and then Allstate. And I was working on helping people hit their numbers, sell insurance, know what they were talking about, sales conversations, all that sort of thing. And then I also built a photography business on the side during those years, and I eventually left corporate to run it full time. So I have 15 years in front of multiple different types of clients between the two. Photography turned out to be the same problem, but in a different outfit. The person on the other hand has usually decided in the first 90 seconds whether they trust you. Everything after that is just you finding out if you can get your own way out of your own way long enough to ask for the sale, because that is literally all it always comes down to. Here's what I've noticed managing sales teams and working with all sorts of different entrepreneurs and business leaders, founders, all that sort of thing. Almost nobody loses the deal in the pitch, but they do lose it in the 4 seconds after the pitch, in the gap between, so that's the plan, and are you in? That gap is where most stall deals actually die, and it has nothing to do with that offer over here. I used to totally think that stall deals meant the price was wrong or the proposal needed another slide. I had to do some more convincing to help people see why they needed to work with me. And so I'd go rebuild the system almost every time because I was like overthinking it. But almost every time the proposal was fine, I just never actually asked. I described, I explained, I answered questions, and sometimes no questions nobody had even asked yet. Um, what I didn't say was the plain sentence, I'd like to move forward with you. Is this something that you want to do? That's it. Do you want to move forward? I would like to do that with you. Is this something you would like to do? Or some variation of it. So this freeze happens, and it's not because it's a confidence problem. Asking for the close puts you in a specific type of exposed position. You're on the record where the other person can say no to your face instead of to a document or to an email. Silence often feels so much safer than a no. And your body treats that the same way it treats a lot of small confrontation. So it looks for some sort of way around it. That's why you'll hear yourself asking, like, any other questions? Do you have anything else you want to say? Instead of just straight up asking for the sale. And it's not because you're unprepared, you're just avoiding a very specific, nameable moment. I saw this constantly managing a sales floor. The reps who struggled most weren't the ones who couldn't explain a policy. They were the ones who could explain everything except asking that one direct question. So I'd sit in and listen to their calls and watch them build a really, really good case. Then hand the client an exit ramp right at the end of when they just needed to be asking, do you want to do this deal? There was a woman on my team at Allstate, maybe 8 months in. She was so good on the phone, so warm, thorough. People love talking to her. Her numbers are half of what they should have been. And I finally sat in on the call and I heard a super strong pitch. And then I heard, let me know if you have any questions and I'll follow up. Instead of, can I get you started today? What card do you want to use? And I asked her about it afterwards, and she said that the ask felt pushy. I get that because I've been there. But here's the thing, it didn't sound pushy on the call and how she was talking. It sounded like the sale just never got proposed. So we practiced one sentence for 2 weeks and nothing else changed. And her close rate went up by close to a third that same month. Same pitch, same clients, same sort of thing. The only difference was that she stopped skipping that sentence. I see the founder version of this too, and I've done it before, so this comes from experience also. So someone will walk me through a proposal that's totally good, really, really excellent, completely solves my problem, and then tell me they followed up and never heard back. And when I asked what the actual last sentence in the email was, it was almost always the same version of like, let me know your thoughts. That's not a close, that's an exit. So here's what you need to do instead. Write down the actual sentence in advance, word for word, and not a general sense of like, I'll ask for the close, but like the literal words, I'd like to move forward. Can we get this set up today? And then I want you to say it out loud alone before the call. So your mouth has already made the shape of it. You practiced it. And you've said it inside your head. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is so scary because what if they say no? You're going to save time because you're not going to be following up and wasting your time on dumb stuff. And then second, you need to stop treating silence after they ask like it's a problem to fix. You do not have to fix that problem. Ask and then shut your mouth. The instinct that we all have is to fill that silence with another benefit or reassurance, something that gives them a way to not answer. But you got to let it sit for a full 3 seconds and it'll feel like a million years, but you just got to let it sit anyway. And then I want you to separate the no from the never. A hesitation in that moment is information. It's not a verdict. Most of the deals I've lost early on, I lost because I decided a pause meant no and backed off when it actually meant give me a second, which is a completely different thing. So let's go back to that deal from the start of this video. That taught me more than any other deal I ever won. And I still think about her sometimes, not because I needed the commission, but because I knew exactly what sentence I skipped. And I made sure I never skipped it ever again. So if you have a deal that's sitting in your just quiet, and it's probably not a pricing problem or a timing problem, you need to just go and say that sentence that you didn't say. So go ahead and practice this week, do the hard things, and I can't wait to see you again in the next video.